Hey, car guys. Good morning. Well, it's still cold out. But today, what we're going to do, we're going to paint the engine cover the same color as the car, the orange. It's something I've been wanting to do, so I'm going to do it. You guys like that? Remember in one of my other videos, I showed how to install the hood shot lifts. I also painted the brackets the same color as the car. So hit subscribe button and at the end, and or just go down there and click the red subscribe button, and check out some of my other how-to videos I have on here for working on the Jeep. But today we're going to be painting this engine cover right here. It's plastic, as you all know, and mine is looking a bit weathered. So I'm going to paint this right here. See, it's all just weathered looking from water and everything. So just wanted to make it a little better. The plan is to paint this part right here black first, and then paint the rest of it orange, the same as the car. So this is going to be a little tricky right here, but I'll be able to get that. And the other part is we're going to take it inside, take it into the basement, clean it off, wash it down, let it dry off, also let it get up to temperature because it's very cold right now. We want to paint on something of this temperature. We wanted more room temperature. So that was what we're going to do first. So today is painting the engine cover. Alright, see you guys inside. Alright, so here we are down in my basement, and so we're just going to clean this engine cover off to get any grease and grime. Just going to use a detergent, a dishwashing detergent, just to clean it up a bit. Put a bit on there. Get an old shop rag and some hot water, and go at it. Just to help get any oils off of here that I can. Get it all nice and soapy so it can get in there and break down any grease that's in there, because any grease and oils that is left on will cause for your paint to you'll see it when you paint on there. They'll turn into circles. There'll be these little bubbles, not bubbles, but circles will start to happen. And you don't want that ugly look. And you'll notice it right away once you start painting. And the only thing you can do then is stop, strip it all down, and start back over. And so to avoid that, just make sure you do a good job. Don't just think about the top, think about these sides as well. Get every place around where you don't want that circling to happen. So get the backs, get all of those areas. Scrub it up then. I would suggest maybe do it twice. First time to break down at least 2 times. First time to break down the initial part of the heavier oil, and then after you get all of that done and wiped off, then go back to it again and to get in these smaller particles of oil. So that's my suggestion, and I'll see you guys up in my office after this when we taper up to get ready for the black paint, and then after the black paint dries, we'll taper up again and we'll do the orange paint. Alright, so I cleaned this up, got all the oil off, hopefully, and now I'm ready to prime it. The overall goal is to prime it, and then I'm going to, without masking anything off, I'm going to paint this part black, whatever silver is black, and I'm going to want these lines right here black as well. So I'm going to spray that part black after priming it. So I'm going to prime it, lightly sand it, then spray these black and that's black. After I do that, I'm going to mask off everything that's black and then paint everything else the orange. Alright, so we're dealing with plastic. It's a little bit different. Unlike metal, but since this is on an engine, I got this high heat You can see that. Although I really don't think I need high heat, because I don't recall any point in time popping up the hood on my Jeep after running the engine for a long time and not being able to touch the engine cover. So I don't think it gets that hot, but I'm using it anyway, the primer. So I've already did a lot of shaking. I have my mask on, so I'm going to go ahead and start priming. Alright. And then I'll put maybe 3 coats of primer on. The first coat being a nice light coat. I'm in my basement right now. Nice to do some something on the car without having to be in the cold garage. Now this right here should add about 10 horsepower to your Jeep. Yes, it should. So I'm going to stick to that. Alright, I think this is pretty good for a first light coat. Don't want to put it on too thick. Just want to make sure to get all areas. So I'll let that dry and come back and put another coat on. Alright, so I let this dry for about, the first coat of primer dry for about 15 minutes. Now I'm going to put a second coat on. Alright, now I'm going to let that dry for about 15 minutes and put a final coat of primer on. Alright, so now I'm going to do the last coat of primer. After I'm done with this last coat of primer, I'll let it sit for, I may just let it sit overnight. And then tomorrow I'll mask off everything. Well, I won't mask it off. No, I'm thinking about, just scratch that. Alright, so now I'm going to put the final coat of primer on. So after this primer sits for about another 15 minutes, then at that point we'll paint the parts that I already talked about that I'm going to paint black. So I'll go ahead and put this on, this last coat, and then I'll do some light sanding in that area. What I don't like is in one of the E's there seems to be some pooling. Not so much of too much of this going up in there. I noticed that a little bit earlier. So I'll probably scoop a little bit of that out of there, see what's going on, and fix that. Do it early on. That way you won't see it in the final product. Alright, there we go for the 3 coats of primer. Alright, so I've let this sit out and dry for a bit, probably about an hour, probably could have went a little bit longer, but I'm just going to do a little light sanding in the areas that I want to make black, which will be here, and the letters. In the one of the E's, I had said earlier how it seemed to have been a buildup of extra material up in there from the primer. What it was a little bit of moisture left up in there that I missed. So the primer was really just sitting on a bubble of water. So I cleared that out and sprayed that up, and I think we're fine now. So all I'm going to do is just take some light sandpaper, and not anything heavy aggressive or anything like that. 400 range, 300 range, and just do some light sanding to knock that roughness off of the primer. Again, I don't want to get it down to the black. I just want to knock that kind of almost like a gritty, I wouldn't say a gritty feel, but not the smoothest feel to it. You just want to make that a little smoother. I'm going to concentrate mainly on the areas that I'm going to do, that I want to paint black, and go over those areas. So that's what my plan is. And now I'm going to blow it off with a can of air to get all the dust out, and then we will spray those parts black. All right, I'll do this sanding and we'll meet back up. All right, so now after a little light sanding, I'm ready to do some spraying. So what we're going to do, we're going to have these lines right here. They're going to be black, and the Jeep will be black, and this raised area here will all be black, although the letters in the inside, and the numbers that is on the inside, the recessed down in there, those are going to be the orange. Everything around here, of course, the main part will be orange. This right here, I'm thinking about possibly doing the orange as well, the gray part. So I'll make that decision after it dries and I start taping it up. But this will probably be the last piece for today, because it's going to need to sit overnight to really get good and dry before I put some masking tape on those black areas, so that none of the orange paint knows. So we're going to go ahead and start painting those areas now. And I think I'll put probably I don't like that this can is leaking. I don't want it to leak on what I'm doing, so I'm going to switch over to a different can. I don't know why I bought that can of paint. That particular brand has done me wrong before in the past. This Rust-Oleum in this type of can, I don't know if you can tell, but it all leaks out. And I've had that happen on me on a couple other occasions too. I don't know what's wrong with this type, but it does that. So I'm going to put that off to the side. I don't want it dripping onto my engine cover and screwing it up. So I'm just going to go with a different can of paint, the traditional style. Luckily I had it sitting over here, so I'll just do that. I'm trying to hit it at angles just to make sure that I'm getting all those sides down up in there. Last thing you want to do is still see some of that gray up in there in your final product. I think that's good for the first coat. I'll let that sit up for about 15 minutes, come back down, and then I'll put another coat on. So I'll do about 3 coats of that. Let this sit overnight, and then we'll do our masking in the morning. Alright, so now we're going to do another coat. This is coat number 2. Alright. Not going too heavy, we don't want any runs. Alright, I think that's good for coat number 2. So we come back, we will do our last coat, and I think I'll probably throw on a little clear coat too on the last, with the last coat as well. Alright, see you guys in a moment. Alright, so now we're going to put our third and final coat of black on, and we're going to follow that up with some clear coat, okay? Making sure to go on an angle just to make sure I get down up in there so I'm not missing any spots. The same here too. You just go over the top with the grates. You'll never get those sides. So you want to, hit it up from every angle just to make sure you're getting that grate, all those sides. So that's my third coat. I'm going to let it sit for maybe about 3-4 minutes, and then I'm gonna hit it up with some clear coat, okay? All right, now it's time for some clear. We're gonna use this. I used this when I was doing the brackets for the hood shock lifts on the Jeep, and when I painted those, so I'm gonna use the same can. This right here is that some clear coat. This right here, as you can see, is supposed to be made for high heat as well. So oil and oil resistant too. So, well, at least that's what they claim. But I'm using it. I already paid for it from a different project, so I'm just going to use it. All right. So we're going to just throw probably about 3 coats of clear on here too. So I won't come back with each coat, but just know I'll do a coat, wait a few minutes, do a second coat, wait a few minutes, and then do a third coat. All right. And I know I'm getting some clear overspray onto the primer. So after it's fully dried overnight, I would definitely take some sandpaper over that again just to knock down that clear coat. Okay. All right. Not the clear coat on the black, but the clear coat on the primer. All right. So now it's the next morning. Everything is nice and dry. Overall, pretty pleased with the where we are so far. A couple little runs here and there. I think one really. If you've noticed, I kind of changed up off camera. What I did, I decided I wanted these recessed areas over here to be black as well. So I went on and painted those while I was at it, and I also want this back line back here to be black as well. So I went on and did that as well. One of the things that I noticed when that I took care of off camera was there was a gray outline around the word Jeep, and even kind of around here too as well. It was really this kind of still shining through, coming through there. So afterwards, I ended up going through over it again, and I like the results now. I'm not sure if you can see it in the camera. There's a bit of that circling that I was telling about. There's a little bit over here, but overall I would say it's turned out pretty good. It's an engine cover, so now from taping standpoint, I'm going to be using this right here. Here, let me get that. This right here, you can see it's pretty thin. That'll be good for trying to do these parts over here. This comes in Menards too, so kind of almost like a pinstriping, I guess, kind of a thing. And some other tape. Now the fear that I will have on here is that once I tape everything up and paint everything, that as I'm pulling the tape off, that it may pull up any of the tape. So, I mean, the paint that was down here, the paint and the primer on here isn't fully cured. There'll be a few days before it's fully cured, but I hope it has enough, the ability to hold on to the engine cover. And I hope the tape even though it's paint tape, and it's supposed to not pull that hard, or hopefully it doesn't try to pull too hard on the paint as well. So here it is out. So I'm going to go ahead and start, and I also have this blade here. So you can see that. It's a new blade on there too I put on there. So that'll help me when I go through all of these and trim out the letters and everything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Of course, I'm not going to, make you guys sit here through the whole process, but ultimately it will be like that, as you can see, kind of like that. And I will do that along the back too. And then for the paint, for the bigger pieces, I'll take the tape and I will lay it down on there, hoping that it doesn't stick to the paint that bad. And I'll go across all of this, do across the letters, do it in these areas. And once I get it all taped up, I'll come back. Alright, so I have the tape on now in all the different areas. I think you guys can see. And so now I'm going to start trimming around it. And as you can see down here, I'm not sure if it's easy to see in the picture or not, but you press down on your tape, you can kind of get out the outline of the letters and numbers to help you out when it's time to start trimming. And that's basically what I'm going to do. I'm just going to start to go around here smoothly to start to trim it out. And I'll do that and come back to you guys. there we are. So I think we're pretty close to getting ready to paint this puppy. All right. I'm going to clean these letters up a little bit. I don't expect them to look perfectly stenciled on or anything. This was done by freehand really with the cutting, and I don't have the steadiest of hands. So it'll be some, you know, rigid, I don't know what do you want to call it, it won't be perfect basically, but it'll be pretty good. I think so. All right. So remember, everything covered with tape is going to stay black, and everything that is not covered will be orange, the same color as the Jeep. So I'll meet you guys in the basement so we can start doing some painting. All right, so now we're down in the basement. I got my face mask on, so I may sound a little muffled. I know I was touching it all with my hands, so I took some rubbing alcohol over it first to break down any body oils on it that may make the paint separate as it touches the engine cover. So hopefully I did a good job wiping that down. And I have my paint. I always order from them whenever I mess around with any of my cars and need paint. It's the brand, the color for my orange Jeep. Hopefully you can see that. All right. And new can came just the other day. I put a can underneath here to keep this as level as possible. The more level it is, the less chances for runs, because I know I am susceptible to that. So I'll put my first light coat on. I'm just going to go light first. So I think that is enough for the very first coat. So I'm going to let that sit up and let that dry for about 15 minutes, and I'll come in and put a second coat on. All right. I think we're ready for coat number 2. It dripped a little bit there. I don't know if you guys caught that. And I was just thinking about that just a second before I noticed that. So what I like to do is just watch your finger to make sure your finger's not in the way. And then every once in a while, clean off up in there. Water will pool down up in there. I mean, not water, but paint will pool in there and eventually drip. So I did get some drips. Hopefully it'll be hidden mostly in the final coat. We'll see. Go over and get the other side. I'm wiping down the nozzle again as well, just to make sure to reduce chances of more dripping. I mean, I literally had just thought about it just a split second before that happened. I'm going a little bit heavier on this coat, which is the second coat. Alright, I think that's good enough for the second coat. Clean my nozzle off again, and then I'll see you guys down here for the third and final coat. Alright, let's see if this is going to be the final coat or not. So I'm about to put a third coat on, and then I'll see how it looks after that to know for sure if this is really the final coat. Something seemed to have blown on here at some point in time right there. I think it's probably a piece of the tape that I had. If I can get it out. There we go. Got it out. Alright. Get my rag. Right down the nozzle. Clear out any potential drips about to happen. Go to the other side. I'm going a little slower with my laps now because I want it. I can do that now. I want that dry look. I think I like the way that looks. I think 3 coats will do it. So now I'm going to let it sit up for maybe about 10 minutes, and then I'm going to come down and I'm going to put clear coat on, okay? Alright, so let's put on about 3 coats of clear and call it a day. Alright, a couple more coats of clear to go. So now that we put those coats on, It's about maybe 10-15 minutes later. I want to try to get as much of the paint off, I mean not the paint off, the tape off while it's still wet. Let's see here. I'm looking on here. It looks like something went on over here. Not sure what that is. Something went on in a couple of some areas. Some stuff all on it. That's what it looks like some crap fell on it. I'm not going to overthink it. Like some crap fell on it from somewhere. I'm not sure where. Maybe from people walking around upstairs, maybe. It is what it is. But I want to try to get some of this off of here while it's still wet. Go. Pull some of these off. And pull the letters off. right, there we go. Not perfect. Yeah, if you see some areas I'm probably going to touch up. But overall, I like the look. We'll finish this off when it dries tomorrow. I'll put it into the engine bay, back onto the engine. Oops, wait a minute, guys. I almost forgot these. Oh, you see that? You see that? You guys see that? I'm going to have to touch that up. Should have done this when it was a little bit more wet immediately after it was I was done painting. It's kind of like if you ever use plastic dip, you don't wait for it to set. You pull your paint off right away. Otherwise it becomes rubberized and kind of like what you're seeing right there and there. So those areas get jacked up. What I may do, I may just paint those parts all the way orange and call it a day. Yeah, so that's jacked. That's messed up. It's supposed to have came out pretty good. And even when I'm starting to see it anyway, even if it would have turned out alright, I probably would paint it anyway. So overall, what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably throw a little bit of orange over on those areas. I'll probably do that tomorrow after this set up. That way I can cover up some of this before letting that happen. So, one of those lessons learned. We'll get it going. Alright, so it's all done and painted, installed, and there's some imperfections. You know, I'm not a professional, but overall I think it looks pretty good. I like the overall look. I think it looks much better than that weathered looking black one. I think it gives the hood some really nice pop. The fact that it's an orange Jeep helps out because that orange engine cover just really stands out opposed to say if it was a black Jeep or a gray Jeep. So that really, really gives it some nice pop. And I enjoy it. And I also installed the catch can over here, the oil catch can. Today I did a how-to on that, so go ahead and subscribe down there, hit the subscribe button. You can go and see how to install the oil catch can, the universal oil catch can. I made a bracket for it too as well, did that in there. So, and I got a lot of other how-tos on there, especially for the Jeep Wrangler. And so go out there, subscribe, take a look. And see you guys with my next project coming up. Thanks a lot, guys.